thank you everybody for coming and joining us for the Vandal Career Workshop. Today, we're going to go over interviewing strategies. I'm one of the career consultants, Clayton Roberts, here to be your guide in understanding the interviewing process. So what we're going to kind of go over today is really kind of break the interview down into the three sections. Before, what happens during when I'm getting grilled, and then what do I do after an interview? We're really going to focus a lot on the beforehand, is getting you prepped for it so that going into the interview, those questions kind of start making sense, but where you can start doing homework initially to give you a higher ability to succeed. But before I get into some of that, I'm going to get into who we. So we are career services. Our job really to teach you the skill set so that you have something that you carry with you even when you leave, be career ready. Whether this is methods for filling out resumes. This is how to go through interviews, how to continue to build those networks, stuff that you will carry with you for success throughout your entire career journey. But if along the way you forget things, don't worry. As an alum, this is a service that's free to you for the rest of your life. So you can always reach back to get latest information. Hey, I haven't done a resume in 10 years. What do they look like now? What do I need to really kind of showcase to get into an area? We're still here. We provide services for current students, alums, staff, faculty, and even prospective students, be able to help them in that navigating that career journey. Some of the things that we help with. Well, resumes, or, I'm looking at going to grad school. Maybe I need a CV. What's the difference? Got my master's degree and I'm looking at going into research or academia. Is there a difference? Yes, there's a difference in those CVs. And this is where we help to how to articulate your information and basically help you create your marketing strategy for you going forward. Talk about the cover letters, how to write them. Same time, this also factors into, if I'm going to grad school, well, what's that process look like? But now, what does a statement of purpose, letter of intent look like? How do we create those? And how do we sell those messages? Career and major exploration. That's something that's not just for while you're here and going to college, while you're getting your degree. A lot of times we'll get people that, I got a degree in this. I've been doing this for 12 years. I want to make a change. Can I? What can I do? This is where we start looking at you holistically. What did you learn? What have you done? And how that can translate into different career options. Or for a lot with the students, this is an area or a field I want to get into. What would be the best major to align me that's going to give you the best knowledge and skill sets? So we'll work hand in hand with that. We go through a lot of how to search for jobs, how to search for those internships, what's the process to use, and really how to read some of those job applications or those internship applications. Of course, what we're here for today is how to prepare for interviews. Don't just walk through that preparation step. We conduct mock interviews and sit individuals down to get them ready for that process. In some cases, it's simply just getting them comfortable talking so that going into an interview, it's not a scary thing. Then I get that interview. I passed it. They want to hire me. Oh, how do I negotiate for salary and benefits? And the tricks that go into that it's not always salary. Sometimes it's PTO. Sometimes it's travel. How that monetary can factor in and how you have those abilities to make those negotiations. How to build networks, both in person, but also electronically through LinkedIn, and how to take advantage of things that may have come up at a career fair. How to utilize all these resources collectively and give you those tools to carry forward. Where a lot of this can be found is on our website. Sometimes it's a little hard to navigate. We're making improvements. But one of the biggest tools is the little box on the side, the resource. This gets you to a lot of our different tools and access to Handshake, which allows you to schedule appointments. Some of the tools we have, one is Career Explorer or Focus 2, especially if I'm looking for majors or trying to figure out just what I want to do. Okay, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I may major. Well, we have Degree Finder, and what can I do with this major? Now this helps to align you into different occupations or different fields that might not have thought really aligned with what that degree is. Handshake is the predominant backbone that we utilize, and we utilize it for a couple of different reasons. One, for posting jobs. The advantage with Handshake, the jobs there are all geared for college students. The other reason is you're not competing with the hundreds of millions of other people out there in the workforce. You're just competing with college students. So it helps to really narrow down that search criteria. The other reason we use it is it becomes an information board for us. This is where we will advertise career fairs, events such as networking night, info sessions. So we can keep you up to date on what's going on and get you career ready. The other thing we use it for is this is how you would schedule appointments with a career consultant. So if I've got a very special topic I want to talk about, this is where you can go to schedule those appointments. And by logging in, this is what it looks like. This is where we can schedule appointments. We can look at the events. We can see the employer lists that are advertising on Handshake. And one of the other useful tools we have that's very relevant to what we're doing is Big Interview. This is an AI tool that basically I've got a chatbot that will ask you questions. We'll talk about this a little later on, the selectivity and what you can actually use it for, but it's great for one, practicing mock interviews, practicing interviews for career specific areas, or even grad school. All right. Services and events, well, biggest thing we got is the career workshop. So up next, we're going to go into building LinkedIn profile on the 25th, and then we'll close out our series with salary and benefit negotiations. All right. So yay, people went to career fair, or they put in their job applications and they got an interview. Now what? Now the fear hits. Exactly, just like that little kitty is. Oh no, what did I get myself into? That's okay. This is what we're here for. So we're going to first start with before that interview. So, okay, got an interview scheduled. How do I start getting ready for it? Well, the big part is understanding the whole purpose behind an interview. What are they trying to get out of it? Usually there's about 4 factors that an interviewer is trying to extract through that interview process. And it starts with 1, okay, you put all this stuff on your resume. What are your qualifications? How do you use what you put on that resume? Well, now I want to know, what do you know about our company? Why are you applying to us? Is it you just need a job, or do you have something connecting our job to you personally? Are you a good fit for us? i.e., are you going to match with our culture or within the specific position that we're offering? And finally, how do you interact with others? Because you're going to be working for an organization. How are you going to intertwine with the rest of those members? The whole idea is they're just trying to find out about you. And this is where we often will say that an interview, we want to try to keep it conversational, because that's where we're going to find out the most information about you. That's easy for me to say, sitting on this side. I'm not the one going through the interview. But from experience, when I used to conduct a lot of interviews, that's exactly the idea. Trying to control that process so that I can get as much information about you and how you're going to fit into the process. Well, how do we do this? Well, we break this into various different types of interviews. And many of you have probably seen a lot of this sequence. So the types of interviews that we typically go through, I'm going to start out with that basic one, a traditional interview. What this is this is the hiring manager, the boss. It's a one-on-one engagement. Now, this is a little different than the next one, which is that phone interview, which might be with human resources. That's really, hey, we're interested in you. We just want to validate that you bring the skills that align with what we need as far as the minimum requirements for execute the job. Well, a lot of organizations have moved from, okay, one person interviewing to maybe a panel. This is where you may have 3, maybe 5 people that are going to be conducting an interview. And the reason we like to do this is it brings in different perspectives. Everybody hears things slightly different. Everybody's interpreting different aspects of the job. And with a panel, that gives more ideas in that selection process. Now, sometimes we'll break those panels into those video interviews. And video interviews we've seen going multiple directions. One is just like that phone interview where you're talking to a chatbot. Others, you're talking with a panel or a group of individuals. Another variation of the panel interview that comes up is this group interview. So typically the way this works is you'll start off with usually a panel or maybe a traditional interview. Then they're going to bring other members in to the interview afterwards. Really, it's people that you're going to be working with. And this is really now to start getting an idea of how you're going to interact with the group holistically. Sometimes we'll throw this into a presentation interviews. So a lot of times what we'll see these is coming in, hey, a first round, maybe a second round, third round, depending upon the nature of the job. A presentation interview is how do you think through building a story, presenting information to individuals. So it's really kind of an evaluation of what your thought process is and how you communicate thought. The most dreaded one, the technical interview. We see this a lot with engineers and science fields, where yes, we're going to ask you a bunch of technical questions and specific questions. And there's some tricks to how to think about the nature of the question. What do people are really trying to get out of a technical interview? Less common that we see really from what we would call a professional field is a working interview. That does not mean they don't exist. What this is we'll bring you in for a couple hours and we're actually going to give you some tasks to see how you would do it, how you work through those individual tasks. Probably the most misunderstood is the meal interview. This one actually happens quite frequently here with students, that they will meet somebody at networking night. They will say, hey, why don't you come join us for coffee in the morning? They're actually doing an interview, getting to know you. And the reason a lot of organizations do like the meal interviews is it changes the dynamics of the interview process. Well, I'm here to eat. I'm going to be a little bit more relaxed. They get to find out a lot more about who you are. So these are the various different styles that can come into play. And again, we're really trying to figure out how you think, how you do things. Okay, so now I know what kind of interviews I've got coming up. Well, where are they? This comes in is helpful because now this figures out what I need to set up. Is it going to be a virtual interview? Okay, I got to get a room. I got to kick the neighbors or the roommates out. Maybe I got to put the dog outside while this is happening. Or is it going to be in person somewhere? Where is that at? How long is it going to take to get to that location? Don't forget to think about parking. And then finally, am I going to be interviewing with? Is this a first round? Maybe it's going to be just HR. Maybe it's going to be a hiring manager. Maybe it's going to be a panel style. Who might be there? What kind of questions might come up? The big thing about the logistics is also factor in the time. It's recommended about 10 minutes before your interviews when you want to show up. And what that does is it gives you a chance to kind of relax. One, you get to see the work environment, but you get to gain your thoughts. If it's a virtual interview, still recommend about that 10 minutes, because now this gives you a chance to, okay, the background is set right, the lighting's good, speaker's working, okay, camera's working. You can check all your system setups so that as soon as you get invited into that meeting, you're ready to go. Now we want to do some research. Okay, I got the interview. I read that job description. Well, what else do I need to know? Well, let's go back and let's take a look at that position again. What are they really looking for? What are some of the key words that repeat themselves? This is now starting to give you an idea of what they may be asking about, what they're going to try to find information out about you. Maybe there's a lot of data collection in there. Okay. Probably going to be things, how do I organize my thoughts? How do I keep track of information? So that we can use that job description to help. But don't just limit yourself to that job description. Google stalk them. Go to their website. read the little about section, what their mission is, what their vision is, what their plans are. What this is going to help is give you an idea of what that culture of the organization is and where the direction they're going. Some other things, re-review your resume. What skills did I put on there? What skills are they looking for? Because chances are it's all going to be intertied, and maybe asking you to expand upon something that was on your resume to showcase those skill sections. So this is all good information that you can go back and start re-reviewing. But at the same time, this is also helping you to start developing questions, especially as I'm looking at those organizations. What are they doing? Where are they going? Because that job description is not going to tell you a whole lot about what you're going to do. It's going to be very generic. So maybe I can start thinking about, well, what does a day look like? What is my job going to look like in 3 months? Starts getting that initial process going. So, yep, they want to learn about my qualifications, but also, yeah, why I'm interested in this company. And that's what a lot I can get from those about sections from those organizations. Some other places, sure, I can search them on Handshake, go to LinkedIn, Glassdoor, anywhere that I can get some additional basic gouge on that organization, some way that we can start making connections. So if I go back and I'm looking at a job announcement, again, I'm looking at commonalities. So if I went through and highlighted, okay, well, I see a strategic blend of storytelling. Okay, they like humor. I see storytelling again. So what they're probably getting is, what is my creative outlet? How do I craft a message to tell a story? They like creativeness, unconventional campaigns for brands. Again, a lot of that creativity, collaboration. Okay, maybe there's going to be questions about how I worked on a team. This is now starting to give me an idea of what the work environment is going to look like and where they may start asking questions to see how well I align with the organization, some of these positions. Okay, I've done my research. Now it's time to reflect on ourselves. Why you? Well, you're getting the interview. That's great. That means you're qualified. That means you meet the requirements and there's something about you that's of interest. Again, this is why we want to go back and really take a look at our resume. What is on there? What am I saying about myself? What strengths do I bring? What are the skills that I have? How do I kind of fit this position? Why am I interested in this position? How am I going to fit in that culture? Because ultimately, this is going to help in creating how I answer this kind of question. Usually the most common question when you walk into an interview. Well, so tell me about yourself. Well, one, I'm finding out about them. But the real secret behind this question is, this is the same as, why are you interested in this job? That is the exact same question. This is who I am. This is why I'm applying. Best way to think of that question. And from an employer's perspective, absolutely, we're looking qualifications, how you interact with others, and how you fit into our organization. So there is some logic in the questioning and how I start preparing to meet the expectations of what that organization is actually looking for. So then we ask this a lot. What is the weirdest interview questions you've ever heard or been asked? Well, we threw up a couple. I had a recruiter from the career fair this year, or from this spring, ask this. Are you a gatherer or a hunter? His intent was, if somebody answers it real quick, maybe they didn't think about the nature of what the question is. He preferred when somebody, let me think about that for a second. But now he didn't care what the answer was. I got asked this one. How many sheets of toilet paper are on this roll? Looking at a thought process. Or, what's the weirdest interview question you've ever been asked? Again, what we're trying to assess is, one, how you think. That's why we throw some of these weird questions out at you. That's the intent. How do you think? Well, we have some resources for you. So some people, absolutely, they need something to write stuff down. Well, this is where we have our interview brainstorming sheet. It's got some common interview questions on it, but it also asks certain things so that you can identify, hey, these are my strengths. These are my weaknesses. So when questions like that come up in an interview, okay, I've already kind of thought about it, may have something scripted out, or at least I've got an idea of how I would address some of these questions. Particularly, why should I hire you? Because I want the job and I'm really good. Well, elaborate a little bit on that. Additionally, we've got another sheet for you. 50 common interview questions. These are great to get people started thinking about some of these common questions and how would I address them? You know, tell me about a time that I worked on a team, conflict resolution. How do I problem solve? And the idea is to get you familiar with standardized questions so that by coming into an interview that I'm not totally on my heels. I can think through answering certain things. But there's a little bit more to how do I answer these questions? And part of that is understanding the types of questions that get asked. So really there's three basic types of questions that usually pop up. The first is this behavioral type question. And what we're really looking at from a behavioral question is we're looking for past experience to give an indication of future response. Or what did I learn from something? These are those common. Tell me about a time that you worked in a team that was very successful. Well, what we're looking for is, did you recognize why it was successful? Conversely, tell me about a time that you worked on a project that failed. Why? Again, we're looking for, I understand why this failed and what could have been done to make it better. Becomes that self-reflection aspect. Then we'll flip the script and we'll go to a futuristic question known as the situational question. Here, we're giving you a task. And now what we're looking at is, okay, how do you apply your logic to work through the situation? Then we've always got the dreaded technical questions. Understanding, knowledge, and application. The fun part about all these questions is there's often not a right answer. Even for those technical questions. I want to know how you think. I want to know how you would address a problem. What did you learn from the past? A lot of people will get hung up in, I've got to give a right answer. Well, most of the time there is no right answer because everybody's different. We all look at things differently. We all solve problems differently. That's what we're trying to figure out. How we can then take what you're bringing to the equation and plug you into our organization. However, there is some methods for answering these types of questions. And this is what they call the STAR method. If you ever apply for a federal government job, this is actually how we grade your response. How do you tell the story? And that's what STAR is the acronym for. So the S, this is my situation. The scene setter, there I was. Who was there? What was going on? Well, now we want to roll into, hey, what was I doing? What was the task? This is really the plot of the story. So we were assigned to put on an event. Okay, how did you do it? That's the action. And be specific on the action for what you did. A lot of times we'll get, so talk about a time that you worked on a team and, oh, well, we did this, we did that. We're really looking for what did you do? How did you benefit the team? How did you help the team? Finally, what were the results? What was the outcome? What happened? This is also where what did I take away? This is that self-reflection aspect. So especially when you get those dreaded failure questions and weakness questions, what we're looking for is, what do I realize? This is what I do to improve. This is why this failed. We're getting that comprehensive understanding. And so this is the standard method for answering behavioral as well as situational. Except the trick in situation, I'm gonna give you the situation, the task. Now I'm looking at what your action and response might be. So we give an example. So here would be a classic behavioral type question that was probably addressed to time management. So my situation, as a full-time undergrad student, University of Idaho, I was also working part-time as a waiter at Joe's Diner. My senior capstone project required that I spend a lot of time outside of class to complete the project on time. Okay, I've got competing interests. What was my task? Okay, throughout my capstone project, I had to carefully balance my time. Spend working on the project and my work schedule. Okay, yeah, I had to eat and I had to get my grades done. So there's that time management aspect of the task. Okay, how did I do it? Created schedules and utilized a planner to set aside specific times to work on my project while still maintaining my work hours and coursework from my classes. What did I learn from it? Through planning and time management. I was able to keep my work hours, maintaining a 3.6 GPA, and completed a successful capstone project. So this kind of gives you an example of how to use that STAR process to tell a story so that I can answer some of those questions. I'm addressing, this is how I manage time. Schedule stuff, I used a planner. The result, I found that successful planning helped me with my time management aspects. So it's all about addressing the content of the question and how I did things. But now the trick comes understanding a question. And they're not always straightforward because a lot of times we will add certain buzzwords in there to see if you're really paying attention to what we're talking about. So keep in mind, when I'm evaluating communication, I'm really looking at a couple factors. One, how well you verbally communicate. Well, I'm also looking at your nonverbal communication skills to gauge, are you okay? Are you comfortable? Are you passionate about something? Are you confused? And lastly, how well are you actively listening? So, give an example. Tell me about a time a client had a disagreement with you about a service you provided. How did you handle the situation? Well, what if I've never been in a position where I was providing a service? How do I answer that kind of question? Well, it's kind of a thought process. What is the question really asking? Don't get distracted on service provided. I'm trying to think, what have I got? No, what we're really looking at is how do I handle disagreement? I may never have been in a situation where I had a disagreement about providing a service, but I can guarantee I probably had a disagreement about something else. Homework assignment, something with my parents, a teacher, friend, maybe another coworker. That's what the question is really asking.
So yeah, my question was, so it is okay to bring in like your personal life, like stuff with your family, as long as it's like appropriate?
As long as it's appropriate and addresses what the nature of the question is. Because it's understanding what we're actually trying to get at. So I give another example. How would you handle a situation where a client refused essential services because they can't afford it? Well, great. I've never had to deal with that. Again, we go back to what we're looking for. Forget that buzzword, client refused. And it's a disagreement again. So now this is where I can pull something from my life that's addressing, this is how I would handle a disagreement. And now this is a situational type question, but I'm answering it the same way. What do I look at as far as the important factors for mitigating a disagreement? Do I come up with solid alternatives? Also, what are my values and ethics? That's what's all shaping how I would handle a dispute between somebody. That's what we're really looking at, because that's going to reflect how, if I put you into a position where you have to deal with a client that refuses services, how I'm going to work through that process. So it's understanding and listening to what the question really is asking. Now we get into these dreaded technical questions. People fear this. Oh gosh, I'm getting grilled on my knowledge. Well, having the correct answer doesn't always mean you have the right answer. The answer to the universe is 42. Great. How did you get that? It's more about how and the process than the answer. All your math classes are great about this because what do they always tell you to do? Show your work. That's it. That's what we're actually looking for. Great, you got the right answer, but I can see your logical process. The question I got about how many sheets of toilet paper were on a roll. There's a couple different ways to go through it. They were just wanting to see how I broke that problem down, how I addressed it. That was the intent. Didn't really care how many sheets. It's just how would you look at that problem? How do I critically examine something and think through it? And again, most of these care if you get the right answer. We want to see your thought process. So it kind of helps demystify the horrors of these technical questions and these technical interviews. Do I know how to apply concepts? Okay. So some tools that we have, this is probably our biggest one, big interview. So like I said, it uses the camera on your laptop, computer, and it's going to ask you actual virtual questions. It's basically a chatbot that's got a lot of interview questions in there, but it's going to provide you real-time feedback on how you answer those questions. So if I were to come in, I can actually look at various practice sets, or, I just want to practice generic questions. Well, it's got that there for you. I'm looking more at the analytical questions, okay? Because I've got a technical interview coming up. I want to at least have some ideas. Maybe I just want to learn, or absolutely, I want to actually practice some questions that are very relevant to the job I'm applying for. Now, one of the things it doesn't have a built-in where I can upload my resume, upload the job, and it will generate questions that way. What it's going to do is, if I go to practice sets, it's going to bring up a various track sheets. General questions. Hey, I'm looking at going to grad school. It's going to ask me generic grad school questions. But it's going to break these down into various sections. Same thing, industry, government. So going into industry. Now I will starts breaking down these criteria. These are very common fields. Well, I'm in natural resources. I don't see anything up there for natural resources. This is not going to help me at all. How do I get around that? We can go into the ONET database. Now from the ONET database, it is going to break down all of these occupations. Physical life science, there we go. Now I can go through and I can select very specific. There's ones for foresters in here, natural resource, conservation scientists, where now it's going to ask questions that are very much geared to those occupational areas so that I can focus in on what somebody may ask and start practicing for that. So this is where this does become a great tool to start thinking about how I'm going to ask or answer questions in an interview process. And as I said, it's going to give you real-time feedback. It's going to score you. It's going to tell you what your rate of speech was, how many times I said, the strength of the words that I used. And an important one is how long my response takes. Generally, I'm looking at somewhere between 1.5 to 3 minutes in a response question. For those that are going to go to grad school, a lot of the grad school programs are having a first round where you're going to be talking to a chatbot and it's going to give you 1.5 minutes to answer a question. This is where this can come in handy because now you can practice those kind of questions and evaluate how long your response is. Ooh, that was 29 seconds. I need to beef that up a little. Wow, man, now that's 3 minutes. Well, I got to shorten that down. That way you can get those reps and sets in so that when you go through the chatbot, you've got the right spill. Then we can get you to people. That's the fun part. We just want to get you to people. But this becomes a tool that we can practice. Or, I've got an interview coming up tomorrow. I don't have time to schedule an appointment with a career consultant. This becomes an alternative tool that you can use. Okay. So we've done some practice. Maybe we schedule an appointment with a consultant. We ran through some mock interviews. I played with big interview. I know where its location is. How do I dress? Now we grow up here, dress professionally, not memorably. I don't want my attire to distract from me. Because if all they do is spend their time looking at what I'm wearing, it's taking away from what I'm saying. I'm being distracted by that nonverbal communication skill. Well, this becomes a challenge. How do I dress? Well, this is where some of that research comes in. Do I dress casual? Maybe not. Smart casual? Maybe, depending upon the field I'm going into. Usually the safest we recommend is at least business casual. Sometimes I'm going to be in the field, sometimes I'm going to be in the office. Maybe I'm going to be mostly in the office. It allows us a little bit more flexibility and dress basically one step higher than our employers. Now, if I'm going into something finance, I'm going to be a banker. This changes the dynamics because we know that is more of a business formal style. But again, we want to know what we're applying for. What is that industry? Because this is all professional attire. Just depends on the industry that I'm working in. So this is where that homework can come into play. These are all the pictures I'm seeing on their website. This is how they're dressing. Okay, maybe I want to step one step above that. But it's not one size fits all. That's kind of the takeaway from this. Not everybody's going to dress in a suit and tie. If I'm going to go be a truck driver, probably not going to interview in a suit and tie. I'm going to interview ready to go. All right. So we had brought it up. Things as I'm doing my homework, where I'm starting to develop questions. Because one of the common misconceptions is they're just there to ask me a bunch of questions. No, an interview is a two-way street. You get to ask them, and you're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. That job looked great in the posting. Suddenly I get in the interview and this is not what I was expecting. This is not the culture I was hoping for. You still have the opportunity to walk away. Or we start asking questions specifically about what your organization does. Because ultimately you're looking to be successful in that organization just as much as they're looking for a successful candidate. Well, what's going to make you successful? Well, what's the stuff I can't get from their website that I can't get from that job description? What's my day going to look like? What are my expectations in 3 months, 6 months? The simple, why do you like working here? How do you measure success? All these questions are geared to set you up for success in those positions. You're finding out what's going to look like working in the organization, but at the same time, it's giving you some evaluation points on, am I going to really want to work here? Now, from the employer standpoint, they're saying, you've got invested interest in us. You're very curious to succeed because you want to know what your day is going to look like, where you're going to be at in 6 months. That's telling me that you've got some interest in our company. You've got some buy-in. So your questions are just as important as the questions they're asking. But these ones are for you. So some other pro tips now that we've got. Okay, the interview process starts in your driveway or at your computer. That's where we want to gather our materials. We want to make sure our computers are set up. We want to make sure we're dressed appropriate. And that we're ready to go have a conversation. If we know the names, great. If not, we want to get the names so that we're reading people appropriately. Again, we just want to try to make this as much a conversation. I know that's a challenge because everybody, oh God, everything's hinging on this. But the more conversational it gets, the more they're going to find out about who you are. Take notes. They ask something that stumps you, that's a good question. Or something that, wow, that would be something interesting to work on. Because those notes are actually going to pay dividend after that interview. A lot is going to be evaluated on body language. when you smile, when you start stressing. Hand motion can be very beneficial because it's signaling where your levels of interest are within certain questions. So all of those aspects kind of play into it. Yes,
What like type of hand motion, like kind of just talking with your hands?
people
You were
that
doing,
talk with the
or-
hands,
Yeah,
absolutely.
okay.
Because some people will absolutely talk with their hands, but they're gotta do this. Well, now I got my hands clenched on the chair arms. Now I'm nervous. That's going to impact my ability to have a conversation. If you talk with your hands, talk with your hands because it's going to help relax you, but that's also seeing how you're going to interact with a group. What? No, I got to sit up straight. I got hands clenched together. That's not how you do it. Don't do it. Because ultimately that's going to affect how I speak. Speaking confidently about my accomplishments. We often recommend try to connect your answers back to that job experience. Now, with that, that's why when I talked about earlier, I might not have an experience that directly links to the question, but the experience that I have is relating to what they're looking for. And of course, practice. The interview can help. We recommend though, coming in, talking to one of us. If not, talk to a friend, somebody so that you can practice saying those things out loud. That's going to help. Virtual interviews. They are no different than an in-person interview, with one minor exception. As soon as they click admit, the interview starts. You don't get that 10-second pause when they say, okay, we're ready for you in the room. Okay, wipe the hands, I can get ready. Admit, we start. So we do want to take a little preparation in getting ready for these virtual interviews. First of all, I want to have a quiet space. I want their attention to be on me, not what's going on around me. Close those tabs. I don't need the alarms going, the alerts going off in the middle of it because that becomes a distraction. It's taking away from what I'm saying. Really don't want my batteries to die. Kind of rough. Again, we're treating it like an actual interview. So have a copy of that job description, have a copy of your resume, have something to take notes on. We want to dress the same. I've talked to some people that are no, I will dress complete because it helps me relax and feel confident in what I'm doing. Camera doesn't go below your waist and you feel comfortable wearing pajama pants, go for it. Just make sure the camera doesn't show there, okay? But what they can see, want to make sure that we're setting that impression that I take this seriously. Review your online profile. So what is your name that you're going to log in with? Oh, I'm using somebody else's account. We might want to go in and do a quick edit, add your name into it so that we're supposed to be interviewing such and such. Who's this? Little things to think about. Now, some other things, why we say check in 10 minutes early. Okay. I can now set my camera up right or adjust my laptop so that the angle's right, because we really don't want to be looking up your nose, maybe down your nose, but we want to be looking square on at you. Lighting. Where is that light? Can they see who I am, or am I nothing but a shadow? Watch the busy patterns. And I will warn on this. I've got some very nice professional attire and shirts that have very fine pinstripes on them. Cameras are digital. That pinstripe turns my shirt into a glowing mass. Highly professional, would be perfect in person. But suddenly I do a virtual and now all you see is a head on this floating blob. Keep that in mind. Oh, maybe I need to change this. Test the sound. Okay, my speakers are on, my microphone's working. And then take a look at your background. Again, we want the focus to be on you. Some people will put elaborate backgrounds up. Oh, I want the classic library with all the books. In reality, we spend most of our time looking at what's on the bookshelf. Oh, that book. What else they got back there? Less time paying attention to the individual. So by just a simple blur or a white background, you're now the star of the show. That's where we want that attention. So now I've gotten through, I've taken some notes, done my homework, I've asked them some questions. I want to keep my name fresh in their minds. So after the interview, usually about 24 hours, send an email, thank you note. What this is doing is it's showing I'm still interested, and it's keeping your name fresh in their minds. You may have gotten a question that you came up with. Another time to ask that. Regardless of how the interview goes, whether it's I knocked it out of the park, they give me a job offer, or oh man, I'm gonna go find something else. Reflect on your experience. We don't do interviews all the time. This becomes a learning chance. What did I do? Where did I do right? What could I improve on? How will I change it for the next time? Because you may have knocked it out of the park. And then 10 years down the road, maybe 2 years down the road, I want a new job. I'm gonna have to go through this process again. What could I have done better? How can I make myself shine? So it's always a learning experience. Then we got to talk about the what ifs. Not sure what to wear. This is where we can come in. You can actually ask us, hey, does this look appropriate? Does this fit this nature of the job? Okay, well, if I've been doing homework, what do they wear in the pictures on their social media ads? What do they look like in the office? Gives you ideas of how to properly dress. Oh, the dreaded call drops. Actually, I like this to happen sometimes, because I can now use this to evaluate how well somebody was able to critically think, resolve a problem. Call right back in. I drop out. We know it happens. Wi-Fi goes kaflooey. Signal just dropped. Call back in. Oh, just lost a signal. Oh, I had to move locations. Wi-Fi is acting up. Perfect. You adapted. You thought. And you maintained a professional demeanor. That's actually can be a great what if because of what it's demonstrating. Blank on that question. Well, there's a couple ways that we can help navigate this. One is, this is usually why you go into an interview, we give you bottles of water. Take a drink. That just bought you 10 seconds to think about what they asked. Okay, that hasn't helped. Can you repeat the question? I didn't catch that last part. What were you trying to emphasize? I'm going to stall for more time. You know, that's a great question. Let me think about that for a second. Or, absolutely, my mind is blank. Can we come back to that one? It's actually not a bad thing. You're keeping the process going. The worst is just sitting there. Okay, are you indecisive? Did we stump you on something? But I don't necessarily want to blare out a single response. So if I want to think about something, you know, give me a second. I'm going to need to think about this. Or what aspect of the question were you specifically looking at? Were you really more focused on the data collection or the data tracking? Oh, this can be helpful. Now we can see how you're thinking about how we ask things. So there are ways that we can readdress that question, stall for time, or get clarification, or if nothing else. Can we come back to that question? Right now, I'm just drawing a blank on it. And if you still need help preparing, we have resources. Both on our website, we have been able to put stuff back on. So we actually have some various videos on the website. This is where we can go to and find Big Interview. A lot of various tools. This is also where you can find online our 50 top questions. If that doesn't help, you can come to us. So we're here, ISUB, 3rd floor, Vandal Success Center.